President and I discussed a fundamental belief that most people don't want to leave home. They don't want to leave the place where they grew up, where the language they know is spoken, where their culture that they know is present and has been, in this case, for centuries. I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. There are legal methods by which migration can and should occur. But we, as one of our priorities, will discourage illegal migration. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
You had a message for would-be migrants. Don't come. The notion that the border is closed. Why should they believe you when they know that people are getting in?
Well, Lester, here's the thing. I've been working on this issue for a very long time. And the kind of violence and danger that is associated with that trek, especially when we're talking about from Guatemala through Mexico to the United States, it's extremely dangerous. And the reason that I am in Guatemala is to address the reasons people leave home, flee. Knowing that the people who are here for generations, or if we know the history of Guatemala for centuries, they want to stay, they don't want to leave. But they need opportunity, they need assistance, they need support.
But Americans don't see.
And we have the ability to give them that.
Yeah, Americans don't see a lot of that on a daily basis. What they do see at their own border, children being lowered over fences, children coming in with, phone numbers stenciled on their hand.
Yeah.
And so the question has come up, and you heard it here, and you'll hear it again, I'm sure. It's why not visit the border? Why not see what Americans are seeing in this crisis? What do you tell a Guatemalan family who heard you say don't come, but they're facing the end? There's poverty, there's disease, all these things happening at once. You tell them don't come? Over 16,000 unaccompanied children tonight in custody. What's victory look like in this, or what does improvement look like? Yeah,
no, that's a great point. And I would suggest to you that we have seen progress already. When we have 12 of the biggest corporations of America I convene them in my office, and they have agreed to help us work on this issue.
So how quickly does this change what we see at the border?
I don't know that we're going to see it. Listen, I've been very clear from the beginning. There's not going to be a quick fix. So we've seen progress. But the real work is going to take time to manifest itself. Will it be worth it? Yes. Will it take some time? Yes. We are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
So, 2 weeks ago, I made a video. I made actually a series of videos. I chopped them up. It was loosely talking about the Ukraine issue, what's going on in Ukraine, and juxtaposing it versus what's going on in other parts of the world. There's a lot of things going on in the world. Conflict is the only constant. America has been at war since America was founded. There hasn't been a 10-year strip where we're not doing something. And most of the world is doing the same. Constant conflict, constant disaster, constant strife and turmoil. That's just what people do. Humans are violent. Humans are corrupt. Humans are bad. So I left off. I asked a question. when I left off, I asked a question. Rhetorical in nature. Be cool if I got a response. Be scary if I got a response, to be perfectly honest. But I asked the question, are we full? Turns out we're not full. I'll get into that later. So I think in my first video, I talked about Venezuela and Maduro and Juan Guaido and how America's hands are filthy. They need to wash their hands. We just sit back for 400 years. First, fix your mistakes. Stop being evil. Sit back for 400 years. Just wait it out. You lost your keys, your senility. You're too old man. You don't get to drive the car. Sit back for 400 years. Let other countries develop. You got your hands everywhere. Stop touching things. Put the mitts on your hands so you can't really touch stuff. Sit in the back seat. Let some other countries drive themselves for a while. I talked about China, about how they are committing humanitarian crises, how they're literally doing a genocide, a slow genocide, not like the Nazis where they were gas chambering tens of thousands weekly. This is more of a war of attrition. Starve them out, see how long they last, make sure they are as productive as they can before their candlelight fizzles out for the last time. And then bury them in a mass grave, unmarked grave, right out back. Maybe use their corpse as fertilizer for the crops that we're forcing these prisoners of war to farm their own crops, because we're not going to feed them. Like, you want to eat? Grow some tomatoes before you die of hunger. What's going on in China is horrible. Talked about how certain people only value white life. And by that I mean most white folk. And they've conditioned most brown folk and most tan folk and most gold folk to respect and value their life at the highest level, high tier level. It's like God loot. That's God loot over there. Like, you got to dungeon crawl for that. You got to grind it out to get God loot. You got to care for their life above all else. I talked about Haiti and the assassination of Haiti, which kind of ties into this whole narrative. How the Haitian president was assassinated, and American and Western media tried to get the world to believe the Haitians did it. Even though there was video that came out where a white guy saying he's an American, and he's directly on the scene leaving the presidential palace as the assassination was just underway, which one can conclude wasn't the Haitians who did it. So I've talked about that and how nobody gave a damn. No one cared. The U.S. wasn't sending billions of aid and weapons and tanks to help them fight off an insurgent, because I feel like the U.S. did it. A lot of people feel that. A lot of Haitians feel that way. Get yourself some brown friends. It's a good thing to have a diversity of opinion. Being in a homogeneous echo chamber, bubble, it's not healthy. Get yourself some brown friends. Get yourself an Asian or two or friend. Make sure you actively seek out to get friends outside of your bubble who don't look like you and may not pray the same way you pray, may not have the same world views you do. It's healthy. So I've talked about Haiti, China, Venezuela. I talked about there's an active war going on in Somalia where the Americans didn't declare war, but we just kind of went over there, just decided to start dropping bombs, killing brown folks indiscriminately. Talked about how the war is encroaching in territorial lines into Ethiopia, and the U.S. just like a snake, a 10-headed snake, some biblicals just sneaks in everywhere. Just got your tendrils and tentacles and everything. If there's a brown country, we're over there killing and stealing. And I've talked about how that's not on the news. It's not on the news. They don't cover this on the news. I've talked about how the news media is there to pacify the populace and give you misinformation. It's all opinion pieces and it's all narrative driven. Most news organizations are owned by a shadow corporation, wherein there's 4 companies that control all media that is distributed throughout the U.S. There's 4 companies that literally distribute all media. So I've talked about Ethiopia. I've talked about how this all kind of ties into how dirty our hands are. I've talked about how dirty Americans' hands are and how we need to sit back and relax. My last video, I talked about the Mexican border, about how these brave people sometimes make 1,000 or 2,000 mile trip, and they come from Central and South Mexico and Central America. They come from 50 different countries. They literally swim from island to island. They got their kids on their backs. Some of them are dying trying to swim up a river. And the white media gets a hold of those pictures and they make fun of these guys for trying. Like a dad and a little girl died swimming. When you lose your humanity, you lose your right to call yourself a human. So I start calling these people dogs and racists. I know that makes certain people feel certain ways, like, oh, it's judgment. No, just fact. This is a cup of coffee. If I empty the cup out, this is just a cup. It's no longer a cup of coffee. When you lose your humanity, you lose your right to say that you're a human. You lose your right to be called a human. So these people who are on Facebook, they've got these secret groups where they share images of Ilhan Omar being ripped apart and AOC being raped through a prison fence or through a chain link border fence. They show little kids, migrant kids being shot. They share pictures of the little girl on her dad's body. They both drowned. They share those kind of pictures. And the government and the FBI and the CIA know about this shit. They don't care because they're the narrative. They're white. They don't care. And racism doesn't go away. And even if it did go away, there's racism's little cousin, colorism, where they've gone to brown countries and they've convinced people, oh, well, you're lighter, so you're better. Like the Hutu and the Tutsi in South Africa. And literally, if you've read Trevor Noah's book, it's a good book. Oh my God. Born a Crime? Beautiful book. Trevor Noah, hats off to you, my man. Hats. That book it's on point. It's funny. It's funny. It's aggravating. It's vexing. It's a good book, though. It's a good read. You guys got to check out Born a Crime. This is not a shameless plug. I am not getting cash for this. I just like that book a lot. I think I've read it once, and I've listened to the audiobook a couple times. So I'm getting off topic. And this all ties into colorism. Like, white folks around the world are group racist. Like, people in Europe are racist against, white folks in Armenia. Because they're kind of they're little less than. They've got a little bit of that more ethnic blood mixed in, that gypsy blood, that Afro blood, that they got a little bit more Ottoman Empire blood, a little bit of that Arab blood, that they got a little bit more less than pure white, Asperg Chen white, having sex with my cousins white, try to keep my bloodline pure white. And they're let me just focus for a second. They're group racist. There's people in Armenia who are racist against people from Syria, and a lot of the Syrian and Jordan, and a lot of Syrians and Jordanians, they all kind of just look like random white. They're white. They're Middle Eastern, but they're white. If you've listened to Hassan Piker, if you know who that guy is. He looks like a white guy until you find his name out. It's Hassan. And I mean, there's white Middle Easterners, there's white Easterners, there's white Northern and Central Eastern. There's a lot of different white folks out there, and their group racism is a thing. It's just a part of colorism. It doesn't need to exist. It shouldn't exist. It's not it doesn't serve a purpose other than to have people hate each other. It's not something that went on in Africa before certain people showed up, and told them that lighter is better. And once again, I'm going to go back to that Trevor Noah book. Such a good book. Everybody should read it. He talks about how that in Africa, when the Belgium and the French and the Portuguese showed up, and they were trying to Germans and Swiss, and they were trying to, steal land and kill. After all of that killing and hundreds of years of murder, and they established cities and like white folk cities, and they drew lines specifically to cause people to be angry. Like, this is your backyard. We're going to draw a line through your backyard. Now that's your neighbor's backyard, because your neighbor, he's a little bit lighter than you. Also, colored people have to go live on another side of town. They don't even get that backyard. They got to go live in these little shanty villages where you'll never be able to own anything because you're too dark. That's what white folks did. And then, of course, there's an uprising. People are like, this is bullshit. Why the fuck am I in a shanty? I gotta walk seven miles before the sunrise just so I don't melt to get a bucket of water. And those motherfuckers, they walk out their backyard, and there's a group well for everyone, but there's a group well. And that kind of thing in that book, it's eye-opening. He literally talks about being born a crime. He can't hold his mom's hand. He can't hold his dad's hand. He's a little boy. He can't hold either of their hand, because if he holds dad's hand, dad goes to jail for a day and pays a fine. Holds mom's hand, mom goes to jail for like a week and pays a fine, maybe 2 weeks and pays a fine. He is to walk down the street and grow up real fast under this apartheid African tradition of racism and colorism for the most part. He said he wasn't black enough. Like in America, they call you the N-word, and he said in South Africa they call you Kefa or Bushman. People will get you to hate your neighbor because your neighbor is slightly more different than you. And who usually are these people? It's ironic. I do recall being told several times in college by white folks who were trying to endear themselves to me that I'm black, but I'm not really black. Because the connotation there is black is bad, and black is not beautiful. I start my videos now with pictures of black women. I don't think the same way they do. Black is beautiful, and literally several times throughout my life, in the military specifically, you go around white folks, and they got a beer in them, and they think they're being nice. They honestly think they're being nice, and they don't think they're being racist. Now, you're not like the rest of them. I was in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, up in the mountains, when was this? It's a while back before I went to the Air Force. I was in the Poconos as a camp counselor for a bunch of little rich, mostly Jewish kids. They were on summer vacation, and their parents shelled out $15,000, $10,000 for them to go spend 6 to 8 weeks in an actual summer camp. Like, I've been to a summer camp. That shit was like a week, not 8 weeks in the Poconos, where we take you on mountain treks and teach you bouldering and rock climbing, archery and skateboarding. I was one of the camp counselors taught skateboarding, actually bouldering and archery. I didn't even know how to do archery. I think I took 2 archery classes in high school. I was not qualified to teach archery, but these were like limp wrist, like big, thick Coke bottle glasses, like mill houses from the real talk. Like, a lot of them were like you didn't have to be adequate as a teacher or a counselor. Just make sure they don't rape each other and sneak off camp. I was like, yeah, so you just do this, and like, I don't think I hit one of the arrows on the target at all. But I think once I realized I wasn't good at that, I just showed them how to do it, and then I released it back down. I was like, all right, now you try it. So I was in the Poconos, and went to a bar. All of the camp counselors on the weekends, and sometimes even during the week, we would sneak out and go to a little bar, which wasn't that far away, about a mile away from the camp. You could literally walk there. I had to walk home a couple times because some of the guys wanted to stay until 2 in the morning. I was like, I'm tired. I had my 3 shots. I had my 2 beers, my 3 shots. I'm ready to go. I'm not going to stay here with all these first off, in the hills, in the Poconos of Pennsylvania, they are some hillbillies, people who consider themselves hillbillies. And this is back when you could still buy filterless cigarettes. I don't think you can do that in the States anymore. They were buying Camel filterless cigarettes and trying to offer me cigarettes. I was like, no, thank you. I'm good. These people were trying to endear themselves to me by talking about how I speak so well. And I never asked them how I speak, but they were like, I'm going to tell him he's one of the good ones. I'm going to let him know that I appreciate him. So the toothless hillbillies would accost me at this bar and try to tell me how I'm one of the good ones. And if I were to do the same, and I think I did in jest, I was like, hey, you're not too bad yourself. You're not one of the bad ones. And they honestly, it went over their head. They didn't know what the hell I was trying to get at. Like that, they didn't know that I was being obnoxiously sarcastic and facetious and a little bit capricious. I didn't care for your opinion on me because I didn't ask for it. It was not solicited, and the opinion was unwarranted. And fuck your opinion of me. I don't care how you feel about me. You're some old half-toothless guy who makes moonshine. And I'm not just being stereotypical. The people were telling me that they made moonshine and they were missing teeth. And we're in the mountains. Not even a lot of houses. The population's so small, everybody knows everybody. And I'm fairly sure there was at least one cousin fucker in that group at the bar. There's 6 camp counselors. There's 6 or 8 of us at the bar. Just us from the group, from the counseling. And then there's just a group of fucking toothless, guys spitting that went down. There was a bucket near almost every seat. Everybody had a spit bucket. So anyway, let me get back to it. They will try to tell you that you're one of the good ones and you should feel blessed. This is like a knighting from a king. You are one of the good ones, and I am the one who dictates who are the good ones. I didn't give a fuck for their opinion. Let me just get back to where I was. This is deep.
Many Ukrainian refugees will wish to stay in Europe, closer to their homes. But we've also will welcome 100,000 Ukrainians to the United States with a focus on reuniting families.
In the last recent years, there has been around 20,000. There's been around 20,000 Syrian refugees that were allowed to come into the United States. There was about 11,000 one year. There was 9,000 another year. And then there was 200, 300 throughout the last 8-9 years since 2015, when we decided that we wanted to start an open war in their neighboring country and fight over oil prices and have the tribal leaders go at it and try to establish figureheads like we did with Juan Guaido and the Haitian president, just go to other countries and start coups and land grabs and resource grabs. So, of course, civil war broke out and there was an actual war. And we started accepting refugees from that country. We accepted around 20,000, a little bit over 20,000 from that country. In the same time, in recent years, we've been selling weapons of mass destruction and warship planes, bombs, munitions, and we supply the technicians to service these planes because jet fighters require the most stringent upkeep. It's in the Air Force. I know a little bit about jet fighters. That was one of the classes. You can go into being a flight crew, which is where you travel to where the plane is. Like where the plane is, you're there. You're part of the flight crew. You're not in the plane. You're keeping that plane up tip top shape. The amount of force that goes in on the landing wells and the wheels and the landing gear wells have to be properly maintained, and bullets. Like there's like 9 to 12 people for every one F-16 or for every one F-22 or F-35. There's like 9 people for every one of them. So we're supplying Saudi Arabia with weapons of mass destruction, and they are committing genocide right now. Like that pause, 10 Yemenis probably died right now in that pause. Maybe 20. It's our bombs. We're essentially helping this genocide go on. They're also starving them out. They're destroying their agriculture. They're destroying lines of trade. They've boxed them in, and they're like Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince. I don't think he's the king yet. He is the ruler, but he's not the king yet. But that's only because his old man hasn't passed away. He is actively trying to kill all the Yemenis. In the last recent years, we've taken in a little over 20,000 Syrian refugees, and we've taken in almost none from Yemen. Almost no Yemenis refugees, almost none. I guess that's because we don't care. We, the proverbial we, don't care for them. As far as the Latinx refugees, I spoke on that earlier. We've taken in like approximately 0 Latinx refugees in the last recent years. Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Peru, Panama, Chile, none. 0. We don't accept refugees from these places because they're not refugees. They're brown. They're too brown. I mean, even though they pray to white Jesus, which is funny. Even though they pray to a statue of a white guy from Africa. I mean, let me not touch on that. They're not accepted as refugees, and they're not admitted into the U.S. under refugee status. Haitians, black and brown folk. In the last recent years, we have admitted approximately 0 black and brown folks from different black and brown countries as refugees. Approximately 0. It's not 0. But on average, I'm not even going to do an average or a ratio. It's approximately 0. It might be like something like 12 to 15 in the last 20 years. Black and brown refugees. And we, the proverbial we, the white power structure we, have gone out of our way to continuously destroy and topple their governments and chokehold their resources. And the thing about NATO, they control whose countries can get what. If they want, they could stop right now the sale and distribution of corn to wherever. They could stop the sale and distribution of soy to wherever. They're in the process of trying to do this right now with Russia. Stranglehold the population. It does not affect the leaders. The leaders are the ones who you see comically getting a suitcase full of millions of dollars, and they have a private jet fly them to the Swiss islands or Switzerland or wherever the fuck, someplace tax-free without extradition laws. So we're not accepting any Haitian immigrants. We're not accepting any Latin immigrants. We're not accepting any Yemen immigrants. I asked a question in my last video. The question is, are we still full? Because when these people came, Kamala Harris had something to say that I find is problematic for a POC.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
I also realized she only got that position because she sold her soul and she told people that she was not going to do anything radical. She was going to be the most milquetoast, ostensibly white person. Kamala Harris says she doesn't have a black agenda, and then Biden doesn't have a black agenda, and I mean, they're not trying to pass Citizens United or healthcare for all. They're not trying to pass reparations. That bill, HR1, was in the fuck. It's just dying. It's dying. No one knows about bills. Who here's read a bill? Who here's a life? I have no life. It's not even that long of a bill. Like, I read the Mueller report. Like, if you can sit through a 480-page bore fest of, like, the Mueller report, you can read a bill. Some of them, like, you can read votes. You can literally, votes are public record. You can find them on Google. You can find out if your congressperson says one thing to you on TV and then does another thing behind your back. No one cares about that. I'm not black, but I'm not going to do anything for you. And Kamala Harris says, I don't have any black agenda. I have nothing. I don't want to do anything for these people either. And they got into office. And that's the only way they could have, because they would have set the power structure. They would have been assassinated. Like, literally, the people who actually have an agenda and they want to follow it, I'm sure there's an orientation. I'm sure the corporations who own America make the Secret Service or whoever's got the levers of power give an orientation, and then they tell them about JFK and the other assassinations, and they're like, yo, you got out of line. How much do you like eating and breathing and having sex? Like, do you want to be alive tomorrow? I'm pretty sure that's what happens, because the people who are movers and shakers get taken out. They took out Malcolm. I'm going to get off topic. They took out Malcolm X when he started talking about economic change. That's one topic I'll never bring up. I'm not going to talk about economic change. I know how these fuckboys work. Martin Luther King, they teach you about him in school. The only thing they teach you about him is he had a dream. He also wanted the government to pay what they owed. He was assassinated shortly after he started talking about economic change and paying what you owe. He started talking about reparations. They took him out. Kennedy started having affairs, and he started talking about government issues, and they took him out. Like, if you don't fly straight and play right, you're getting murdered. So I'm sure Kamala Harris and Biden have had that orientation. I don't know if that's an actual orientation. I just know it. I think that's a Bill Maher segment. I don't know it. I just know it. This isn't the proper time to say that, but a lot of Ukrainians are racist as shit. A lot of white folks around the world are racist as shit. A lot of Russians are racist as shit. A lot of Armenians are racist as shit. A lot of Turks are racist as shit. And I know a lot of white folks in America would be like, well, they're not really white. They are white. They're the whites for their area. All right? They're the whites for their area. They're ostensibly white. They're default white for their area, for their group populace, for that region. And I know that that's not a popular thing to say, and I don't give a fuck about popularity. I am literally making videos that I like. So let me get back to topic. A lot of Ukrainians are racist as shit. There's a few weeks back when, actually, I guess, like a month ago almost, there was reporting that African students were trying to leave Ukraine. They were trying to leave the Ukraine along with the white Ukrainians, and they were not allowed to leave. Now here's ostensibly what's happening in the country. And everyone's like, we gotta go this way. There's the border, there's the train, there's the plane, let's get out, let's go. And the black students, now let's get this straight. They're students. They're there because they wanted to go to college, and Ukraine accepted in migrants from black countries like Nigeria, Ghana. They accepted in these people, and these people went there to cheap school. Also, for the record, colleges are only expensive here in America. Like, you can go to Wales or Britain or the Ukraine and get a full doctorate. You can go there and complete your doctorate for like $3,000 to $4,000. Like, the shit's ridiculously cheap. It's not that it's cheap, it's that America's corporation. All we care about is money. We don't care about life unless it's white life. I'll get into that. So these Nigerians and these Ghanans and these Zambians and these people are over there, and they're trying to leave, and the white people are being super, super racist. I love saying super, like it needs a cape. That's how racist that's how racist these white folks are. They need a cape. They won't let them leave. And I mean, like at borders, the police have machine guns pointed at their heads, and they're like, we want to kill you. Because in the back of their head, they're not human. You're not human. You're not human. We've dehumanized you. We don't see you as human. Therefore, I feel like they're not human. The ones who can dehumanize people that easily, they're not the humans. I don't know what the fuck to call them. So they're pointing guns at these people who are trying to leave their country, and they're telling them to get back. Get back to where? Like, where are they going? There's bombs falling behind them. There's mortars, there's shells, there's explosions, there's death back there. These white people are like, hey, if you don't get back, I'll kill you. Get back to where? So they're essentially stuck between a rock and a racist place. A super racist guy with a fucking racist cape. That's what's going on. And it had been happening for weeks until it literally was going on for weeks. And you didn't see this news covered, or you didn't see this covered in the media. I think the reporting, I was watching a streamer, I was watching a YouTuber by the name of Kim Brown, who is a beautiful black queen, first and foremost, and she's intelligent, and she has cogent information. She can just convey it like in a cogent manner. Way more polished than I am. Like 1,000,000 times more polished, like a jillion times more polished. And she was covering this story about how black people, African people, were trying to get on planes and trains, and they were being denied. This is during a war. Now, essentially what the white folks were doing was saying, we don't want to kill you, but we will kill you if you don't go over there and stand underneath the bombs. Like that's white folks in the Ukraine. And all of the people fleeing, not one of them stopped. Like occasionally, in certain situations here in America, if white people see something, some type of atrocity where they can assert themselves, they might say, hey, stop beating him up, officer, and they'll say something. They'll at least acknowledge that something's not right. There's not a single piece of footage of that happening. There's people fleeing on packing sardine on train, and there's black people being pushed back by the cops. And nobody's like, why aren't they letting those black people on the train? Hey, officer, stop. No, stop it. No, not a single fucking person did that. It'll never happen over there. You'll reach out your hand out the train as the door's closing on your hand to go grab the little white girl's teddy bear and make sure it gets on the train. It's not even your daughter, some other. She dropped her teddy bear. Gotta risk your arm being chopped off by this train and grab that teddy bear for the little white girl. But the black guys have machine guns pointed at their face, and they're being poked and pushed and told to go stand over there where the bombs are falling, because we don't want to kill you, but we don't want you alive, and we will kill you if you don't go over there and die. That is like the most crazy shit in the world. Every day I'm astonished that these people can they up themselves. They one up themselves every fucking day. They one up themselves every day. Not a day goes by where they don't one up themselves. Like, I don't want to shoot you, but I will. So back up. Go over there where the bombs are. There's bombs and tanks. Go over there. So the reporting is that C-SPAN or CNN actually tweeted out a clip of the video that I'm about to roll out.
But I want to take a direct look over the last several days of people who are of African descent, who come from the continent, who are in Ukraine for a variety of reasons, and who are trying to get out of Ukraine, but are being denied, forced back, and even the ones who have been allowed to cross out of the country have a very harrowing tale to tell. So let's take a look at that.
And then they immediately saw what they were doing, and they realized that this wasn't going to fit their narrative, that these white people were good and pure, and that they're dying and they shouldn't be. I'm not saying they should be dying. I'm not saying some of them are, like, people are bad. I started off by saying this. People are bad. Not all people are to the same degree of bad. There's degrees of bad. So, and there's degrees of good. I consider myself good, but to some of my super Christian friends, I'm probably one of the worst people. I'm like a heathen. Maybe not. I don't know. But so there's degrees of good and there's degrees of bad. And these people over there, I don't see them as good or bad. I just see them as white folks, like who have a capability to do good and bad at the same time. Like the guys from the pub, from the Poconos. They were trying to make me feel good. In their head, they were doing good. But they were somewhat insulting me. They were telling me I was one of the good ones. It's like, I feel like that's the Ukrainian experience. They can be good. They can be evil. They can literally tell black folks, you're not allowed to board a train or plane. And this wasn't happening in one location. Like, I want to be clear. This was happening across the entire border. They were not being allowed to leave. I have a video that I'm going to make about the coronavirus and ethnic cleansing. I don't want to forecast that too much, but man, white folk. I mean, you got the whole world about to go to war for Ukraine because Russia's taken over. No one said a word when China's doing the same thing and America's doing the same thing. We're literally going to war without declaring war, dropping bombs. Humanitarian crisis, tell that to the how many millions of Iraqis and Afghan people died in the last 20 years because of American bombs, because of weapons of mass destruction. Bush is a war criminal. No one's going to say that. That man's back there finger painting and selling his paintings on Etsy. He's over there. He got a second top. They're lauding his presidency. If he comes out and says one bad thing, he says one bad thing about Trump, and then him and Clinton and Obama are all sitting in a church pew and they're all whispering to each other. He's a good guy now. Millions of brown folks are dead because of him. Dirty hands again. We gotta just sit the fuck this one out. Sit it out. How about police reform? How about free college education? How about decriminalizing petty drugs? How about demilitarizing? Did I already say that? No, police reform. Demilitarizing the police. How about decriminalizing being homeless? How about housing the homeless? How about fixing small issues? How about being more Christ-like? How about being a decent person? You don't have to be Christ-like. Just like be even keeled. Start in the middle. That's too much for Americans. We prefer, because we're a corporation Our government literally is owned by corporations like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Boeing. They're owned by oil tycoons. OPEC's got their hands in our pockets, and they're moving us around like a puppet, which countries to invade because they've got oil, and we want to keep these prices up and down. We want to destabilize. Like, just sit this one out, because we don't run shit, and I don't want to go to World War III. I want to start my new career, and I want to be able to walk out and see the sun without wearing a hazmat level 3 radiation proof whatever with a rebreather I don't want that for the future. And I also don't care about the Ukrainians enough for that to happen. Like, we're going to go to war in Ukraine. We're going to go to war with Russia. Why? People are bad. Conflict is happening everywhere at all times. At all times. War is bad. So we fix war with war. Is that jujitsu move? You just like, how do you fix war with war? And stop taking our tax dollars to go fund some other country. Literally, there's homeless people here. The 80% of the buildings in downtown Chicago are at like 10% occupancy. 80%. There's high rises that go towering into the sky. There's 60 floors. There's nobody in these places. Why are there so many homeless? At Jewel Osco, like stores, they throw away their food and they have locks on their bins. They have locks so that the homeless people can't get the food that they're throwing away. I just don't get it. People are bad, and that's what I get. So with that, Kim Brown, you are awesome. Good peoples. And once again, if you like this clip, please tell your friends. Thanks for watching. If you don't like this clip, I don't care. Just keep watching. I need the views. Tell your racist family members. Tell your QAnon family members. Come check brother out. Because I know about y'all more than you know about me. And maybe you should learn a little bit. It's always good to have a black person or a brown person's perspective from time to time. I mean, couldn't Hoyt.